Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 3-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 7 o'clock. 2 games are actually at 9:40, so do keep that in mind. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also drop your home run calls in the comments below. I believe Patrick got his correct again yesterday, so he's on a little bit of a streak. So let's keep those going. With that said, let's get into the slate. My core plays here on DraftKings are Alex Cobb, Aaron Judge, and Mitch Haniger. And then moving over to FanDuel, it's Alex Cobb, Theory Estrada, and Mitch Haniger. So keep those in mind. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into the slate here on DraftKings. So we'll start with pitching, and we basically have 3 good options here. One being Cobb, who has really nice upside in this matchup. He's got a decent strikeout rate here, and this is a pretty good matchup against a team that does tend to be hit and miss, and so he's got pretty good upside here. His price is also the cheapest of the top tier guys, and so I think he is a viable option and a good core play as a good way to help you pay up for other options. Then we'll look at Nathan Eovaldi, who's had 2 really good games in a row against decent teams last 2 weeks. He's also got a good strikeout rate, which he's only had 5 strikeouts in 2 games. Every other game has been over 6. And so I like his upside as a result of that. This is a easier matchup for him as well, the easiest matchup on the slate for pitching. So I definitely think that he is in play. His price is not super ideal here, but he is okay. He's also had 4 straight quality starts. Then we'll look at Drew Rasmussen for his Tampa Bay. Now, he faced New York the last time he started, which he got 22 fantasy points. It's usually not a good sign to use guys after they just pitched against a team the last time out. But he has a strikeout rate that's decent enough, and there's really just no other good options on the slate outside of the same returning pitcher for against Tampa Bay, which is German, and so he's the better of the two, and he's got more upside as well because he's facing a New York Yankees lineup that's not quite as good as Tampa Bay is. Now, I will say this, that Judge is back, which will probably hurt him some, but it has potential to hurt him some. So he isn't a must play, but he's definitely viable, and his price is still pretty fair. So I will mention Domingo German. I don't really recommend utilizing him against the Tampa Bay Rays because Tampa Bay has been trashing everybody. But he did face Tampa Bay last game as well, just like Rasmussen did, and so he's not a must play. He's not a great play, but he does have good stuff. He's had some good strikeout games and has some upside in that as a result of that. Moving into the catchers and first baseman, this position is terrible. There's not a single player that has decent metrics for these matchups, but Jonah Heim is just the best catcher available. He's had some pretty solid games lately, and he's got some upside as a result of that. And he's got a good matchup as well. Shea Langerlays for Oakland is also in play. He's been somewhat inconsistent this season, but he has home run potential. He is a boom or bust candidate here, kind of a Hail Mary play, but he's cheap enough that he's viable. And again, he's got better metrics than anybody else on the slate, which isn't saying much on this position. Moving into the first baseman, Ryan Noda is in play simply because he's hitting the ball decently well, though he hasn't been starting every game, so you do want to make sure he does draw a start. And we'll have to wait and see if he draws it today. But if he does, then he's definitely in play here. But he's somewhat risky because Eovaldi looks like a really solid option as well. Then we'll look at Diaz for Tampa Bay for first base. I really like his upside in this matchup. He's expensive and hard to roster as a result, but he's got good. But with the cheap options available across the thing, you can definitely sneak him in there. And he's had some pretty decent games lately. Nothing over the top, but he has home run potential, and that's what we're looking for here. And then Wilmer Flores, who can play first or third base. He's hitting the ball pretty well, has home run potential, and he's got one of the better matchups on this slate as a whole. I really like it. I think a San Francisco stack is not out of the question today. So moving into our second baseman, we'll look at Brandon Lowe, who's been absolutely terrible as of late, but he's priced okay. He's got home run potential, and he has upside. He's just high risk, high reward because he hasn't hit the ball well. Though he did take a couple of games off, so let's see if he can get back to it now that he's got a few games off. We'll look at Marcus Semien next. for Texas. Now, he's hit the ball pretty well. He is extremely expensive, but he's got a nice matchup. He's got plus metrics here, and he's facing Oakland's pitching, which is always a nice advantage. Then we'll look at Flores at third base, who can play first or third. He's definitely in play there. But David Villar is also in play at third base and second base. He has not hit the ball well at all this season, but he does have a boom or bust position potential here, and that's why he's in this consideration. And then J.D. Davis for San Francisco, also in consideration, has hit the ball pretty well and has home run potential in this situation. Moving into the shortstops, Estrada is a great option here. He's expensive though, but he's hitting the ball extremely well. He's had some really good games lately, has nice upside, and he's hard to roster, but he to his price, but he's definitely in play. And then Casey Schmidt, not Clark Schmidt, sorry. Casey Schmidt here for San Francisco is a minimum priced play, high risk, high reward here. He had good metrics in the AAA, and so I do like his upside, but he is high risk, high reward, but he's super cheap and helps you pay up for other positions. Moving into the outfielders, we're going to look at Aaron Judge, who obviously is Aaron Judge and has, home run potential, and that's why it's here. He's just very rosterable to the way with the way that the value is lined up on the slate, but you could always contrarian off of him and put in Estrada or Yandy Diaz or even Marcus Semien on the corners, as opposed to, and then go cheap on the outfielders, which is definitely doable today. Corbin Carroll is also in play for Arizona. He has some interesting upside here as a high-risk, high-reward play against a pitcher who should be able to do pretty good, but he has home run potential. Mitch Haniger is, I think, a core play here for me. He hasn't hit the ball particularly well, but he's had 4 hits in the last 3 games. He's got some upside in this matchup, and I do like a San Francisco stack today. Then we'll look at Rooker for Oakland, who has some interesting upside in this matchup. He's just a home run or bust kind of option today, though he is hitting the ball well, and so I like his upside, but he's in a riskier situation. And then Pabin Smith, another guy that's in a similar situation, not super ideal, but has some utility as a, potential home run hitter. So moving over to FanDuel now, it's going to get a little bit more interesting over here. With pitching, it's really hard to justify playing up for Eovaldi, considering his price. And even so for Drew Rasmussen, that's why I went ahead and put Alex Cobb as a core play. I don't necessarily think you have to use Cobb. I think you can pretty much use any of the top 3, but he is definitely the cheapest and has the most upside when it comes to helping you, insert other players in your lineup. Moving into our catchers and first baseman, the good news is we can avoid the catchers today. The bad news is this position is still kind of wonky, but Ryan Noda is in play here. He's pretty cheap. He's got some boom or bust potential, but he would be facing a pitcher that you could potentially put in your top tier part of your lineup. Yandy Diaz is probably my favorite play at this position. He is fairly expensive and hard to roster as a result, but with if you put Cobb in, that definitely makes it a little easier. And then Wilmer Flores, who's also in play at this position or third base, is cheap and has some nice upside for this potential matchup. Moving at second base, we'll look at Brandon Lowe, who's very cheap over here, which helps roster him, though he is a boomer bust candidate due to the fact he hasn't hit the ball well at all lately, and so that is a concern. Marcus Semien is also in play for second base, and I really like Texas's upside. Something like a Texas slash San Francisco stack seems like the most ideal option today, and he definitely helps you do that, though he is fairly expensive over here. And then Yandy Diaz for third base, you can throw him in there. You can also put David Villar here at third base or second base, though he is a high-risk, high-reward, kind of a Hail Mary play, but he's also minimum priced. J.D. Davis is also in play here. He can only play third base or utility, but he has some good metrics here and home run potential. And then Casey Schmidt for San Francisco. He is a nice contrarian play that's minimum priced on the slate. Moving into shortstop, Dario Estrada. He has some really interesting upside in this matchup. I like his metrics for this one, and he definitely draws the top tier option on the slate. at this position. He's really the only guy I even like at the position here on FanDuel. Aaron Judge is in play in the outfielder. He's very expensive, but he is rosterable with the cheaper options available. Corbin Carroll is also in play today, though he is high risk, high reward due to the matchup, but he has decent potential here. Mitch Haniger, I think, is a core play. He has very nice upside in this matchup. He is kind of not a great hitter, but he does have the home run potential, and we like his upside now that he's starting. And then finally, last but not least, Pavin Smith, who has hit the ball decently well. Not a big home run guy, but has some potential in this matchup to have a decent game. But however, he would be facing, potentially your starting pitcher. So I don't necessarily think it's bad to have one guy that goes against your starting pitcher today on either site. So do keep that in mind. But with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.